If you tend to procrastinate frequently, very likely there is one very common mistake that you are also making. In this video, I will explain to you what that common mistake is, why people make that mistake, and how to stop doing that. Just in case you don't know me, my name is Rajan Singh and I'm the founder of a startup called HabitStrong. In my past life, I've been a McKinsey consultant, an IPS officer, and an investor with a private equity fund, and now I'm an entrepreneur. So now let's talk about procrastination. Now, there are many different ways in which people procrastinate, but here is one very common pattern. You have a task which tends to induce some kind of fear or anxiety or discomfort or some negative emotion. It could be for any reason. Maybe the task is too complicated, or it requires you to do something which is unpleasant, or take a difficult decision which you're not sure of. It could be anything. All right. Now, when you think about starting on this task, or when you try to sit down and start working on it, immediately you are hit with that negative emotion. Now, it turns out that our mind or our brain is wired for two fundamental things. One is to seek instant gratification, which is seek instant pleasure, and avoid instant pain. So the pain which is right in front of us, we want to avoid it. So now what happens? So you have to get started, and that creates this emotion of pain or anxiety or fear or some negative thing, and you want to escape. Now, here is where we come to the most common mistake people make. So instead of getting started on the task that you're supposed to work, what do? You find something else to work on. Now, this other task also, it is useful. It has got some value. But in this case, choosing this other task is essentially an avoidance mechanism. Now, what happens is, if you were, let us say, just trying to work on this difficult task, after some time, you're trying to get started, but you're not able to. You're sitting there looking at it for some time. At some point, the combination of the guilt and the fact that, you're just spending time doing nothing, it would get you started. But what happens is, when you choose this other alternative task, whatever pressure was building up in your mind to somehow get started on this, that pressure, that guilt, it dissipates because now you're doing something else, and that also is useful. So you get busy, your mind forgets about the other task, and you feel like you're creating some value. And what happens at the end of the day? You did something else. Sure, it was useful, but the task that was stuck, it stays stuck. Now, the next thing is, you come back to the task the second time. Now what happens? The same fear, same discomfort, but there is one more thing. Your mind also remembers that, you know what? Last time I should have done it, but I did not. Now, it adds to that negative feeling. If you keep avoiding this task, the fact that you have been sitting on it for a couple of weeks or even months, that itself will make you feel terrible about it. So now the negative feeling becomes even stronger. So the tendency to escape that task becomes much, much stronger. I don't know if you have been in the situation where there is some task that you've kept pending for months, maybe sometimes even years. Have you been through that? If you have such a task, I can guarantee that just thinking about that will create such a terrible feeling that you don't even want to think about it. All right. So this becomes a trap, and it looks like there is just no escape. That's not true. There is an escape. And that's what I'll tell you now. To find how to break this pattern, we have to identify the pivotal point where exactly things are going wrong. And can you identify where it is? And the big mistake we're making here is that when we have to get started on the task, and let's say we don't do anything for 5-10 minutes, in our mind, the pressure is building up. But then the mistake we make is we pick something else. Picking that alternative task, that is the mistake, because then it lets all your pressure dissipate. It just goes away. So now here's an alternative way to approach it, a solution. It's something called time blocking, but a variation of what is normally considered time blocking. So here's what I suggest. For whatever task you have, you block some time. Let's say you block 1 hour. Now, what you tell yourself is that in that 1 hour, I'm going to sit and work on this task. But you don't have to force yourself. You don't have to grit your teeth and just grind through it. All you're committing to yourself is that during that 1 hour, I will either work on this task or I can sit idle. If it's a task which I do on my computer, I can sit and look at my computer. That's okay. But I cannot do something else. I cannot start checking my email. I cannot start talking to somebody else or solving some other problem. No, you either perform the task or you sit idle. Now, here's what happens. When you're sitting idle for some time, a couple of things will happen. One is that even if there is some negative emotion, some anxiety that the task is inducing, when you sit idly for some time, chances are one is that anxiety might subside a little bit. It might not, but if it subsides, great. Second thing, more important, is that when you sit there looking at your computer screen for like 2 minutes, 3 minutes, 5 minutes, at some point your mind says, says, you know what, let's get started, let's do it. In your mind, some pressure and some motivation is building which says, been like, 5 minutes, I've done nothing. Why not just give it a shot? Let's get started. But if you were to pick something else, this whole thing would just dissipate. It'll find an escape. So block it. Block the escape mechanism, block that avoidance of this task. When you do that, let's say after 5 minutes, even 10 minutes, you get started. And the fact is that most of these tasks, in fact, I would say probably 95, 99% of these tasks are such that once you get started, it doesn't feel as scary. Starting is the most difficult part. And even if you work on it for, let's say, 10, 15 minutes, and after that, if you can't go any further, that's fine. Take a break, sit idle again restart. All right. So that way, now you have this block time, and in 1 hour, you'll make some progress for sure. And by the way, don't try to force yourself to finish it in that 1 hour slot. If it takes more time, let it take more time. You allocate 1 hour or some time, fixed time period. And then later on, some other day, maybe you allocate another 1 hour. And you keep repeating. As you do this couple of times, this task will get done. All right. Now, the beauty of this approach is that it does not require some great willpower or self-discipline or anything of that sort. The only willpower or discipline you require is to stay true to your commitment to yourself, that you will either work on the task or just sit idle, which honestly is not that hard. So that's it. This will work. And now I want you to try this out. Thank you.